We're good to go. Esther,
Sounds
thank you
awesome.
for you're awesome. Thanks for jumping on. How you doing, Esther?
Chris, doing good today.
Yeah. Well, what'd you do today? Tell me about your day. I know you had today off.
So,
You have a very busy
yes,
schedule.
yes, it is a day off. Day off right now for me looks like trying to get a little self-care in. We'll dive into that as we chat. And for me, self-care today was basically hiking. I'm in a really, really gorgeous area of the country right now. So I'm in North Dakota. On an Indian reservation with the Pembina and Chippewa Indians. So I went to where one of the locals recommended like the spot. It's called Butte St. Paul. And a butte is like a really, really, I don't want to call it a mountain because it's not a mountain, but it's like just really high, especially like elevation wise. And went out there. The weather was kind of iffy. It looked like it could storm, but I said, let me at least do this little side quest real quick. Hike to the top. The history behind the butte in 1850, the first priest that came to speak to the Indians, his name was Father George Belcourt. And he kind of helped do a lot of positive for the reservation, for the Indians here at the reservation. So the town now that's the center of the reservation is called Belcourt after him. So I thought it was a nice little history tie-in. Got to the top. It's gorgeous. The views are beautiful. Like you could see about 10 miles all around the
What
entire, yeah.
what was the views like?
So it's a lot of the area where I'm at right now, it's a lot of rolling farmland. Everything's very green right now because it's early summer. Now,
Yeah.
I'm originally from Florida. So right now, Florida's sweltering at about 105. Here it was about 62 when I was hiking, which was perfect.
Oh yeah,
And
it's perfect
oh
weather.
my
I
God, it
love
was
hiking.
absolutely perfect. But yet, like the sun's shining, so it feels nice. And you just see green for miles around. You see these different lakes. There's a lot of lakes in this area. Um, I got here in the winter because I'm a travel medic, and I wanted to go ice fishing. Didn't quite get to do that, but maybe next time we'll see. But yes, there's a lot of fishing. There's a lot of farmland. Just a really like small type community feel. But for me,
Yeah.
it's just gorgeous. Very like a low key way of life in compared to like big city.
Kind of laid back.
Yes,
Small towns?
very.
Yeah. Michigan, Southeast Michigan, that's where the main city Detroit is. And then on the other side of the state, you have Grand Rapids. That's another big city. And everything north is you have the small towns. We're surrounded by water too, rolling hills, a lot of open land, uh, lots of trees. It's beautiful. Greens and fresh lake water. I'll get up to like in the Upper Peninsula. It's even way more rural out there, God's country. And um,
I
a
think
couple
of
years
that
ago,
phrase a lot when I come out here. I'm like, this is what
yeah.
it's like. Like it's like you're touching the sky sometimes. It's nice.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. I remember like just getting out there doing hikes and camping, and I'll backpack. I'll go out and I'll do a couple nights or somewhere. I did a Porcupine Mountains a few years back, and they have a Lake of the Clouds. So the lake, like the elevation goes up, and the lake is kind of there's certain times where it looks like the lake is actually in the clouds, and that's
Oh,
where it
that's
got
so
the
cool.
name. Like yeah.
Yeah.
So Porcupine Mountain. I mean, I didn't see any porcupines when I was hiking around out there, but I don't know if that's why they call it. I don't know,
I
but
almost had a second side quest because on my way back, like there's horses and cows, and I saw like a little calf, and apparently I couldn't find where the hole in the fence was. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm not even a cowboy, but this calf was just like bebopping along, living its best life, took off, went somewhere, and like you could see like the rest of the herd elsewhere, and it's just like bebopping along the main road, and I'm like, there's nobody for
bebopping.
miles around. Like, there's nobody for miles around, and I'm like, to adopt a cow, not to adopt a cow, but also, yeah,
Yeah.
so I was like, I was this close.
Yeah, it's
I feel like
hilarious.
everybody needs a baby cow, but whatever.
Yeah. You never know. I mean, you see them out there. I'm trying to think if I've seen some. Yeah, you see them up north going through sometimes, and that's funny. I remember I went through like yeah, North Dakota. I was going to Montana a couple years back. We drove through. Oh, they're beautiful. It's beautiful on this side of the country. Cool. So you're from Florida. You're in North Dakota now. Travel medic job. How long have you been out there?
So this particular assignment was a little different. I started in the dead of winter. Do not recommend if you've never experienced that, because I've been to other places. I've worked in Colorado, Louisiana, West Texas. I've worked probably in what I would consider desert conditions. In West Texas, it got as high as 130 when I was working out in that posting. So North Dakota was very different for me. I got here December 1st was my first shift, and it was negative 20 degrees or so. Um, Quite a few feet of snow on the ground. So those were
Yeah.
some very interesting challenges. The first few things I learned very quickly was weatherproofing, um, both yourself and then being aware of that when it comes to patient care, rescuing
Yeah.
people out of cars, or even
Mm.
just going to homes, because it's a whole nother layer of something to consider, both
Yeah.
environmental and medical. And it got as low as negative 52 this winter, and I was
Wow.
on shift that night. And it is to a point,
Negative 52.
yes, negative
And you're
50.
from Florida.
Yes, yes. It was everybody local was very, one, they've been very welcoming, but two, they were very like, if you made it through the winter, like, you're great. And honestly, it has been. So yeah. But learned a lot about cold burns versus regular, like when you would
Mm,
think like you would burn yourself on a stove or something like that.
yeah.
From a medical perspective, a cold burn does get treated the same, yet there's a few differences. So a lot of really interesting things that you don't always see in medicine, but we are very rural. So again, just adding to that toolbox. And that's one of the things I love about travel medicine. I feel like I always have a chance to add to the toolbox of the things I learn and stuff I can teach others as I come across patients, family, like in my travels. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big change of weather and dealing with all that,
yes,
especially when you got up there in December.
yes,
So you already been out there for like
6 months now.
6 months. So yeah.
Yes, yes,
And so you're on an Indian reservation
yes.
and are you on an ambulance and you're
Yes.
okay
So
or
our
okay.
system here is a little different than a lot of travel medics. You either get assigned into a 911 system. Some places you'll get assigned to do interfacility transfers. There's a lot of variety of what you could do when you travel as a medic. My assignments have been a little bit of everything. In the
Yeah.
past, I've worked as support for land oil rigs, which is a more safety and medical component. I've worked as a correctional medic. That wasn't as much of a contract as it was like a different type of job. And this here is structured where we answer 911 calls from the reservation. Like, we're dedicated primarily to the natives. But if there's anything that the neighboring counties need or the neighboring towns, for example, if I'm the only advanced life support provider, usually medics, critical care, that kind of thing, if I'm the only one that's on duty and they have an issue either in the next town or a couple of towns over, and I'm available, the dispatches will contact us and I'll go provide. It's almost like mutual aid. So there's a
Mm,
little bit of a lot of different components here. Our primary function is to basically provide 911 services for the Indian tribes and also kind of facilitate what they're getting and the service they're getting in the emergency room, while also connecting them, because it's considered rural critical access emergency room. I've got 6 beds. But at the
okay.
same time, um, we stabilize and treat people that are stable, can be seen at the clinic. There's a very big clinic. There is a med surge floor that is attached to this facility. Anything that's more crucial, then usually myself or one of the other ALS providers would transport to a bigger city. In this case, it could be as far as the capital of North Dakota, which is Fargo. It could be as close as Minot. Still an average anywhere from minimum of 2 hours, maximum of 5 or 6, to get you to where you need the correct level of care.
Hmm.
So then that falls on the more experienced and the more advanced providers, which again, that's the category I'm in. So I kind of do a
Yeah.
couple of different hats in this role.
S- Okay. So you kind of are out of a facility then where
Yes.
you respond from. You can hop in
Yes,
a
we
rig and
respond
go.
from the hospital. Hospitals
Yep.
basically supplier everything, work
Yeah.
with them hand in hand, and with the emergency room specifically, yes.
How much radius again are you
It really depends.
can you
My actual tribe is about 30,000 people or so. It is covering the entire
okay.
reservation land, but then there's a
Yeah.
town to the east and a town to the west. And those, while they're not technically our primary response, we are, as I mentioned, more like a secondary. mutual aid, especially if they don't have a paramedic. Like I'll generally be told by dispatch at some point during the shift, and they kind of have an awareness if there's certain things that I would have to go out and kind of intercept to help with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, okay. Lots of support out there. What about air support?
very difficult. It is weather based. So
Mm,
I had rain last night, and I responded to two ATVs that collided at a fairly high rate of speed. And we both drivers ejected more than 50 feet, which is significant.
mm.
And so I was very lucky. I had my second medic with me that generally doesn't happen. So I feel like it was, in a really bad circumstance, it was the best possible result
Right.
for that circumstance.
Right. I get where you're coming from.
So that medic took one of the patients. I took the other patient. My patient was bad enough to the extent that there was skull showing. Still
Uh,
alive, still everything else, but that's already kind of like a picture of how severe his injuries were.
yeah.
And normally, with that type of injury, you want to already be considering air support. It wasn't like torrential rain, but the fact that it was already raining, that already makes it not possible to have like helicopter support, which we would call rotor. So then at that point, you kind of increase the level of severity. And based on, because what all I did was stabilize, bring him to the emergency room, and then start working with the emergency room doctor. And
Hmm.
we came to the decision, and after doing full body scans, because we do have that ability, he determined that um, yes, he was stable. He wasn't as critical as to need flight anymore, which is a good thing because we would have to wait for something called fixed wing. Fixed wing is pretty complicated because of distances. The nearest airstrip that can hold a fixed wing airport is anywhere from 30 minutes away, sometimes up to an hour away, depending
Okay.
again on weather. So everything is very weather dependent. You generally don't have that much flight support. Like it's available, but like it can't fly, if that makes
Okay. Is
sense.
there like a platform on top of the facility or the hospital
No,
then?
the
Or you,
last
okay.
time I had a clear night when I did have to fly someone directly from facility, what happens in this particular location, security clears out the side parking lot by the emergency room, and that is where the helicopter lands.
Interesting.
That is
Hey,
literally
whatever
what
you got to do, make it
exactly.
work.
Exactly.
Improvise.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing about rural medicine. You have to be a good medic. And I say everybody has the capacity to do this, but then it's how do you get your brain working to where you're using and you really get to know your tools, your medicines, everything, and you apply it in a very creative way to meet what you need in that moment. Because a lot of times it's literally just you, or you have yourself, the emergency room, that doctor, but we still are limited. Like because we're rural access, I don't have surgery. I don't have the ability to do a lot of the things that people take for granted.
Yeah.
And so what that means is depending on the skill of the emergency room doctor that I have now, what can I do or we do together to kind of get you to a point that not only are you going to safely get to the bigger city and get the definitive care that you need, but also like what can we do to kind of help it along the way. So yes,
Right.
I feel like I've been very lucky. I have really, really good doctors that I'm working with here. And I think it's a very valuable thing. I bring a lot of pre-hospital knowledge, and then they have like
I
a
bet.
wide variety of what they can do.
The
And then we
pre,
come up with
yeah.
solutions together.
Okay. You respond from the hospital and you
Hmm.
work in the hospital
To a certain extent, yes,
to a
pretty
certain
much.
extent.
It
So you
goes
have your
like
both.
a seesaw
I,
because you have
yeah,
to work as a team. There's not an option
you,
not to.
yeah. Wow. You do a lot.
Yes.
I worked on an ambulance, 911 calls, it transports, and I worked in the ER as well, but not like where we both, I mean, sometimes the medics will come in or when we go to the hospital, we'll work real briefly with the doctors or something as we transfer the
I'll give a
patient.
great example of kind of what teamwork
Yeah.
looks like. So, in the last however many hours, this is pretty recent. I got called out and from the hospital. So, and I happen to have an EMT with me, so that's yay. And the call comes in as potential seizure.
So you go out, yeah, you'll go out, get
Yeah,
the
so
seizure
it
patient,
comes in
come
as
back
potential
in, and you
seizure.
will stay at the hospital with them and stay. You don't just
Correct, to a
transfer the
certain
patient
extent.
and leave. Do it,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So it comes as potential seizure. And when something like that comes in, I already know we're going to be handling it at my level of care. But I looked at the EMT and I said, why don't you come with me? Because let's see if this is something that might be just more. We are 8 minutes from the spot where we're being called to. En route, I get an update from the emergency room nurse being like, hey, they just called, the patient's unresponsive, they started CPR. Okay, so
Oh,
now that starts a different level of thought process here. So at that point, I'm
right.
communicating with my EMT, okay, this is what our game plan is going to be, etc. So I will say, was really, really proud because we got on scene. There was CPR happening, which was great.
And the
My
patient's like,
went,
stop, stop. And they're
no,
keeping,
no,
I'm joking.
unfortunately not. My EMT goes in, takes over. I'm immediately coming in with equipment and everything. We get the patient with the help of some bystanders immediately onto the stretcher, immediately loaded into the back. We were on scene a total of 3.5 minutes, which is insanely quick and insanely good. And at that
Yeah.
point, my EMT, like we're in the back, and I gave the driver instructions like, this is what I need. We're 8 minutes from the hospital. Let's just keep it smooth. So then in the back, my EMT's working on airway. That was secured. I called the hospital on speakerphone as I'm doing what I have to do. And I'm basically narrating to the hospital as I go, which again, every provider kind of does their thing. But what really was cool about that is by the time I arrived to the hospital, right around those 10 minutes later, they already had the anesthesiologist coming in and they were physically there along with um, my main medical director was present as well. So that was awesome. The team was ready. We rolled right in. We're working, and it just was a seamless handoff. And when that kind of thing happens, and this particular patient is really given every fighting chance that I would have wanted for my own family member, even though it wasn't the outcome we wanted, end of the day, it was what we would consider a sudden cardiac death. That's really what we
Hmm.
would consider, which is really sad. But at the same time, as a provider and just seeing how the team worked together, if it had been my family member, I would have been at least having kind of the comfort that everything went so smooth and so quickly, and we did absolutely everything to give every chance at life.
Yeah, you did everything you could and
And
everything
it's
that you were
hard to say
taught.
that as a provider. Other people that work in the field are going to understand that because sometimes you second guess yourself. But like without a doubt, I just knew that was kind of how it all came together. That's how it worked, and it really
Yeah, no,
was a good
I
thing.
I remember like when I kind of first started and going on a call like that, or something where it was a CPR and you get there and you're trying to do what you can and like the senior guys are like, all right, we did what we kind of could, and then you're just like, wait, can I do more? Like, what do you mean? Like, and then you
Mm-hmm.
start questioning yourself, and then you kind of think about it after even shift. You're like, that was it, like, and it's you did everything you could, you know and the rest of it isn't really in your hands,
Right.
you know. And those calls can be tough and stuff, when you start
Yes.
thinking
And
about
that's why I
them.
said, like, I try to build in some kind of mental health, especially because of staffing. I've probably worked more hours than I should. Just last previous 2 weeks, I don't know, it's a blur. I logged like 83 hours. Like that's significant.
That's a
But at
lot,
this,
and it takes a
yeah,
toll on you,
it does. And so one of the big things
mentally and
that
physically.
yeah, I do is even if it's little moments, like I work on like a everything adds up, kind of like think such stacking. So even if I take 30 minutes intentionally for something that I'm going to do for myself, whether it's for fun or for pleasure or just to like blink, I think that's so important. And it's one of the things that I talk a lot with partners that I have and with other people in our field because mental health really is hugely important. And
It
so much
is.
so to the point that I even wrote a book about it.
I want to hear all
We'll
about it here.
talk about that too. But
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll get all into all that good stuff. But you're
yes,
right about the mental health. I mean, I think with the sleep
yes,
alone is and how much
sleep
it
is huge.
because you lack sleep, and then it's like you have the next day and you may have to work again, and it can add up, and
Mhm.
it takes a toll. You know, you gotta like even like you can't even enjoy yourself when you want to sit down and get some food because like I remember going and we'd sit in the back of the ambulance and you catch a call, you can't even enjoy a meal. You know what I mean?
I feel like depending on your perspective, like I went into healthcare because a nurse basically took her lunch break
Yeah.
and saved me and my daughter's life in childbirth. It would have had a
Wow.
much different outcome. And
Yeah.
honestly, that little, just minute action, and to this day, whether she remembers or not, just that one action started a whole thought process in my head where from that point, 3 years later, I went into healthcare and I told myself I'm going to be that person for somebody one day. And then I had like a little bit of a convoluted path to get into emergency medicine. And I think one of the things I love about emergency medicine is that for better or for worse, I am the one person in the one moment at one time. And whether it made a difference or not, that's not on me. I just do the best I can. But at the same time, you don't know who you impacted and what that difference was. And maybe somebody out there one day will be like, I remember that medic, and she was this in that moment for whether it was a family member or for them or for whatever. And for me, that's enough because at least I look at it the same way I feel like my law enforcement partners and my fire partners. I feel like you have to have a certain calling or, depending on your personal philosophy or whatever, I think you have to have a certain genuine desire to really want to kind of be of service to your fellow humans to do something like this. And if your
You
heart's not
do.
like that, I don't recommend it because that adds to burnout. You can do
Mm.
all the self-care in the world you want, but if you
You
don't
get
really align with
you gotta
caring,
yeah, it's hard.
you know,
And even to you gotta take care of yourself too.
right,
You know,
right,
I
it's
think the mental
balancing.
health thing's so important to focus on that
Mhm.
and looking inwards and taking care of yourself so then you can take care of other
Yes, I
people.
can't pour from like an empty cup at all. So,
Right. So the fire departments, they have some fire departments and stuff
so
throughout
this
the
current here, I used to do fire. I did
yeah.
fire for 5 years. Got up to driver engineer, but it just wasn't really the path for me. Had a little mild injury, got over it quickly, but I kept going down the healthcare route. And healthcare wise, I've got critical care certifications now and a lot of other things that just turned out to be my path.
You
But
got
here,
those extra
fire,
certifications.
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So here, fire department here is half volunteer and half what we would consider career or paid. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting because they it's very different in different parts of the world. Like in Florida, where I'm from, it's fire rescue. Fire rescue pretty much answers 90% of the time answers your 911 call. Whereas in other parts of the world, like here, us as EMS would answer the 911 call. Fire wouldn't come out unless it's like a car accident or something's actually burning, something structural that has not as much to do with patient care. So it's a little different based on how the community that you're in, how they kind of interpret that.
Yeah. Okay. And then what so your shifts at the facility you leave on the ambulance, but what are you doing 12s?
For, yeah, hip. Okay, my EMTs definitely do 12s. I laugh
Okay.
because, again, when you're the advanced provider, if there is a transport that has to go to specialty care, we're talking 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, I could be halfway through my shift, but now I'm going to go on a transport. By the time I come back, I really will have done like a 16 or an 18-hour day. That's kind of the nature of the beast, more so the more rural you are, especially
Yeah.
somewhere like here. So yes, I'm supposed to work a 12, but also that's probably why I had the 1 week recently where I did 83 hours. That
Wow.
kind of gives you, it could be 12, but it could also
Do
not.
do you have some downtime?
Sometimes. Again,
Okay.
you don't ever, it's like 911 everywhere. You don't know it, feast or famine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot. Um, so with your other job, so you're a travel medic,
Mhm.
I think it'd be cool because people that are interested in that doing that, like if I was interested in being a travel medic and I didn't
Mhm.
know kind of where to start. I lived in California and I worked as a basic out there. And then I looked and I was applying for a job. In fact, I think I even applied for a travel medic job in North Dakota. And they emailed me
Mm.
back and said, you don't have enough experience yet. Because I just got my medic license. They're like, you need at least 2 years of experience before. I don't know if that rings a bell. You need to
It
have at least two
does.
years.
My
And
story's probably a little weird because I had a year of experience already in the field. So I
yeah,
had a lot of healthcare experience. I started in the hospital world as a tech and moved into the field. But I did
okay.
level one trauma, which level one
Yeah,
trauma, for anybody that knows, it's pretty high stakes, high movement, high acuity. Even the techs do a lot. I
okay.
wanted to do. more. So I went into the field as a basic, kind of like you did. I had already done that for a year when I went into medic school.
Yeah.
That happened right before 2020. So the ending of my medic school coincided with the beginning of COVID. And because the world shifted so much, unlike a lot of travel medics, I did not wait for 911 experience. I went straight into the travel world. That's not how it would look like nowadays. So, full
Right.
disclaimer.
No, that's
Nowadays,
cool.
yes, I would say you would want at least 1 or 2 years in either like a really high-paced inner city 911 system or somewhere that's rural enough with the support that you need to kind of develop. Because like even medics that I've mentored, I can tell you and talk you through millions of scenarios. I could give you all the knowledge that's here, but there's always going to be what you develop on your own to where, and a lot of my seasoned medics will agree, technically I'm still a baby, like this is year 6, but you do get to a point that you're walking in now and you're doing all this what we call assessing. You're basically using all your senses, like your eyes,
Hmm.
your ears, everything, and you're collecting all this data, and it becomes subconscious to the point that you're filing in the back of your head. So if I had to verbalize everything that I see from the moment I'm walking in, I can be like, okay, his eyes are tracking me, I'm looking at the chest rise, boom, we've got an airway, I'm looking at potentially how interactive they are. Okay, that'll give me an idea of like the level of consciousness they have. Do they look wet, like sweaty? Is there something I need to be concerned about? Because let's say they look wet and sweaty. If they're warm, okay, am I considering something that's heat related versus something that could
Is
be heart
internal.
related? Is
Right.
he cool? Is he undergoing something that might be, if he's cool, is it heart versus diabetic versus you just got out of a seizure and your body's just kind of all trying to compensate and cool off from that. So many things that you're subconsciously, and it comes with time, it comes with experience, because you could be the most amazing, smartest, straight A medic, know all your anatomy, know your physiology, know your pharmacology, until it doesn't come together in the field. And it's just practice. It really is, because the medic I am now is very different than the medic I was 3 years ago versus 6 years ago when I first started. I don't know that there's
Yeah.
a right or wrong way. I think being humble and being willing to say, hey, I don't know everything, but I'm going to start where I do know and just keep building from there. I think that goes a long way to making you better, and it makes you better to be able to do more or even know when to do less.
Hmm.
And that sounds funny, but a good medic will sometimes tell you less is more depending
Yeah.
on the situation. And you start kind of getting all that knowledge. I don't want to call it intuitive. I want to say it's more of a take all that book work, take all that effort, everything you studied, and then mix it in with common sense and what you're seeing, what you're experiencing when you go out to these calls. And pretty soon you start developing something, I call it like spidey senses, or like that little red flag in the back of your head, where you could walk in and you're going through, how are you? And kind of checking, let me check your pulse, let me listen to you, but your mind is processing certain things. And if you kind of are at the point that you develop that instinct and something they're saying or something that you're seeing in combination
Hmm.
with what they're saying in the back of your head, it's filing a little data point that says, hey, Esther, guess what? They're saying this, and that might be what they're thinking, but there's something medical happening here that you need to investigate.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you develop those instincts. And it all comes with time. So, yes, I would say to travel, at least get a good 2 years of good experience in. Don't be afraid to, again, admit that you don't know something. Always seek out, because you can learn from both the mistakes and from other things. I've learned a lot
Right.
from certain mistakes. They're gonna
Yeah.
happen if you're consistently, and I'm kind of preaching to myself that a lot of us that are medics, like we're type A personalities. If you're consistently hard on yourself and trying to aim for perfectionism, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because one, it's not realistic. Nobody's going to
Right.
be all the time. But two, you don't want to be so hard and critical of yourself that you get in your own way when it comes to providing the best care you can. And don't continuously second guess yourself. You know your stuff. You're doing it repetitively day in, day out. Always just practice good basics and good foundations. You may have
I
had
love
that
it.
instructor that said BLS before ALS. Well, basic life support before advanced. Yes, because at the end of the day, the air goes in and out, the blood goes round and round. And if you deviate from that, that's when you got problems. So sometimes if it just gets overwhelming at once, take a step back, Take a breath. Okay, is the air going in and out? Awesome. Is the blood going round and round? It's not poking out anywhere. Okay, if it starts not going somewhere, what do I got to do to fix it? And then you start from there and just build ABC.
Yeah. Well, it's
Just
tough for
build.
you because you're the medic, and you said that you bring in EMTs with you. So
Mhm.
sometimes there's other medics with you, but
Yeah,
not
most of the, at least
always.
in this particular area of the country, it's very scarce. So I may have an
Yeah.
EMT, I may be completely by myself. It's very dependent.
And yeah, for people listening, I mean, if people, I'm gonna post this to YouTube here and have fun with it. You're one of my first guests, which is great. And EMTs basic, they can just do basic stuff to help the medic. A medic start IVs, do advanced airway, do everything else, pretty much
But again,
everything
I
the
will
ER can do.
say, like I've said to my EMT partners, basic saves a medic all day.
Yes,
And
they
I
do.
say that because, yes, as a medic, I'm already thinking through all these
Well,
thousands of
they're a
different kind of
team.
things.
We
But
need each other.
yes, like I am telling you XYZ, but you're the one that stops and says, hey, guess what? This. Or like the call that I was describing, I gave the airway 100% to my EMT. I already knew in my head between distance and the other things I was fixing, there was no need to pause and do a complicated advanced airway. We were getting enough with what the EMT could do between a BVM and oxygen flowing. And he
Hmm.
was doing a great job. It was compliance. And I was like, keep doing exactly what you're doing. Like, you're focused on the biggest thing, which is airway. And I'm going to keep working the rest of the things I need to do right before we get to the hospital. And sometimes it's that simple.
Hmm. Cool. I like though also when we're talking about health, like, and then you're working on a book as well. Like I want to get into that too.
Yes.
And I think with like I was saying though, before we do talk about your book though, I don't know if there's anything else with being a travel medic, and I'm trying to think of questions that I would have had when, because I'm still interested
Well, a
in
lot
it.
of the questions
And
that you would possibly have. So I wrote two books already. They're both on Amazon.
wow.
The first one is called How to Be a Travel Medic. Super simple, kind of dumb title, but that's literally the point. I basically just put it together real quick. It's if you've got Kindle, it's free.
Yeah.
Just kind of the real format that's easy. I wanted it to be where you could sit in your rig or at your base post, whatever, and kind of swipe through. It's not super long and just kind of gives you this is the pointers. These are the things that I learned in my experiences. These are some do's, some don'ts. And this is where I would start. This is how to start looking for the position, to start looking to see if it's a good fit for you, to start looking to see if, it's not for everybody. One of the trade offs is you may not have the traditional family life that other people could have, working in their home city or in their home county. For me, I'm in a position where it works because my children are in college and my partner's very understanding and he also travels part of the year.
You look
So
so
we're not
young. It's
always
wild that
yeah, we're not always
you
together, but
do.
again, it's a sacrifice. Like I feel that I'm really really blessed to get paid well because you get paid very well as a travel medic for
Hmm.
the most part. And I dive into that a little bit in my book as well. But I feel like it's a blessing to get paid really well to do something I love, which is being there. Because I don't like the whole saving lives terms. At the end of the day,
Hmm.
it's really not my job to decide who makes it or doesn't. It's more, I'm going to fight death with you and give your body every chance possible to do what it needs to do. That's kind
Yeah.
of how I look at it. But yeah, so that was book number one. And then book number two is called Mindfulness, Calm and Chaos. And it's about kind of the mental health side of this kind of medicine we do. But it's not just for people that are in the field. I kind of expanded it and it was a lot more general for everybody that I've worked with, whether it's law enforcement, emergency room staff. If you're a clinician, I recommend reading it. Part of being in the field this long has taught me that, and we were talking about it earlier, one of the questions that you had asked me, Jeff. How do you fill your cup so that you can keep giving to other people? And a lot
Hmm.
of that is mental health. I've lost a couple of good acquaintances and people that I've met in my travels because of mental health, whether it is suicide or stepping away from the field completely because of burnout. And I think it's sad because there's not enough of us in this world. So it kind of touches a little bit on things that you could do on a daily basis and just make part of your routine so that you're taking care of yourself first.
Right.
again, also available on Amazon, made it a real easy read. Sit on your rig, flip through it, bookmark little things that you like in it or whatever the case is. And down the road, I want to expand into I've got a website already and I want to expand into possibly doing some webinars and just some more hands-on interaction on things that are going to be helpful for all of us that love this field and love what we do and love the way we are able to give care to people anywhere and everywhere.
I love it. I think that's so important. I think starting with like mental wellness and also being good at the job, and those two go together very well because then you're going to give the best patient care,
Yes,
you know, because it's a hard job. It
it
is. I
is.
think it takes a toll on you, especially when you're working those long hours, lack of sleep, and then when you're at work, it's go, go, go. You can't, and it's like it's stressful, you know, and it's tough. I don't think only the people that are kind of in the job get
Right,
it. Then it's even
right.
hard for spouses. They
It
really
is
don't
hard on spouses,
understand.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, some of them do. They get it, but not all of them. And the relationship issues that happen that you hear, and then the mental health problems, suicide rates, things like that. That's a problem right now in this service,
Hmm.
and it's just I think it's great that you kind of talk about it, and I think you should definitely do webinars and reach out to people and work on that.
Appreciate it.
I
One of the
love it. Yeah,
things,
I
yeah,
go
that
ahead.
I
Yeah.
usually say, and because, as you're a medic in a lot of places, you'll be asked to tutor or to train EMTs or maybe even other medics that are, newly coming on board or whatever. And something I like to say is once you know something, you can't unknow it. No one's going to take that away.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so I believe in that really, really heavily. I also believe in, it used to be a stigma on mental health, and there's still stigma around a lot of things. But if I am in the field and I chose to be in the field that intersects people, because we're all people, and it intersects people on their worst day and people that are possibly in their worst health. So I've got all these things that are negative. I need to have the internal compassion and kind of like the awareness to be able to have like a hard conversation, but like in a easy way, like in a loving way, and then teach my partners and teach whoever I'm mentoring how to do the same thing, because that's kind of the root of everything too. At the end of the day, sometimes I step back and the question I ask myself is, if the shift had been any differently, or if the shift had been only family members that I would have had to do something for, would I be satisfied with what I did today? And that's
Hmm.
kind of like my bar. Like, is this the care I would want for my loved one?
Right.
It's easy. And I've run into either medics and EMTs and other, care partners that are burnt out and they're like, oh, I just don't care. I just don't care. And, depending on how it is, at least I'll say something, even if it's gentle. Hey, do you need a moment? Or is this just kind of where you're at right now? Like, what is it that makes you feel this way? And do you think this is maybe affecting the way you treat some of our patients? Like, at the end of the day, it's not my job to call people out. It's really not. But I'm going to just, again, kind of leave that open door because that's part of it too. Like, I can only be as good as the weakest link on my team. And what can I do to kind of lift them up? And, you're not ever forcing anybody, but like, where is their head at? What can I do? Do they feel frustrated? Are they overwhelmed? Is there something that maybe I can do or say or both to kind of be like, hey, this is a pause. How can we make it better? And then it becomes a better experience. It becomes a better shift. It becomes a better everything for everybody that's involved. And at the end of the day, the patients that need the care and the emergencies, like, they benefit from that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like you have such a wealth of knowledge in
It's
this
been a
for
lot of
six
hard knocks. It's
years.
like I said, it's a lot of hard knocks and it's been a lot
What
since, yeah.
what'd you do before?
So way back, we'll do a nutshell. Way back when I graduated from Florida International University in Miami in 2005. I was into broadcast journalism. I worked for both Univision and for the Fox Sports affiliate. Was heavy into both music and sports as a journalist, which is why it's kind of funny. Everything's come full circle because I've taken a lot of that passion for creativity, and that's where these books have come from. Because I like to write and I like to kind of express. So I did that for a little bit. Obviously, life happened, had kids, and then went into healthcare. And that's kind of like the very short of the long
Yeah,
of
I
how I
get it.
got to where I'm at
For
now.
sure, for sure.
And it's so
Yeah.
funny because now at this stage, I'm like, how do I continue? And there's still quite a bit more to do. I would say the one thing I have left to do is do flight as far as being a flight medic.
You want to do
That's the one
everything.
thing I have left to do. But
Maybe
where
work
do you
on
go from
set.
here?
Maybe work on
Huh?
set as like a set
Well,
medic on movies or
actually, so
something,
I've
right?
done events, kind of
Events,
similar
okay.
concept.
Yeah.
So there is a good company
Events
out there.
too,
It's
right?
called Event Medics.
Yeah, you
And
could do
anybody that's out
events,
there that, yeah,
flight medics, travel medics. You
yeah.
can go overseas.
Yes, you
But you've
can
been all,
actually.
yeah. So you worked in, you said, I heard Colorado.
Colorado,
You were, yeah,
Louisiana,
yeah.
obviously have done a little bit of time in Florida, Texas, specifically West Texas, and then of
Mm,
course now in North Dakota. That's been kind of like the main bulk
what
of
was
where
your longest stint?
well, I wouldn't call it a stint because this wasn't a contract. I took a
Okay.
break from contract work briefly when my kids were during like their graduation senior year, just to kind of give them a little bit of more. Because remember what I said earlier, this does, depending on your family structure, travel isn't for everybody. So I kind of took a little bit of a time away and I did 1 year with a local fire department in Florida. It was a really good experience because obviously that just kind of refreshing all of my fire skills. And that's where
Hmm.
I was able to get my driver engineer. But also, it was kind of not a fully rural county, but it also wasn't like super crowded. So I had a
Yeah.
mix of stuff, everything adds to your experience. And of
Hmm.
course, I was home. The part that kind of sucked, let's be real, was the pay. And that's one of the reasons a lot of the travel medicine partners that I've met across time, that's one of the reasons we travel because unfortunately, in the US, and I'm going to talk in like really general terms right now,
It's okay.
there's still not a real understanding, I think, with cities and governments, because that's where most of the pay comes from,
Yeah.
that they understand that we're not getting paid for what we do. We're getting paid for what we know and to prevent or hopefully be in the right place at the right time when something happens. And if
Yeah.
you don't pay enough for someone to live off of that, then you don't get the coverage and the staffing and what you need. And one of the sad realities of that is there's areas of this country where, you know, just speaking generally, Billy Joe Bob is on the council, and the council members have voted all to not raise anybody's property taxes because, hey, that's not popular. But then when Billy Joe Bob's, loved one has an emergency and there's 911 takes half an hour to get there and they pass away, like, how does that feel? And
Yeah.
nobody understands it until it's not knocking on their door with their loved one.
Right.
I'm hoping, and I've seen a trend in the last few years that we are getting better at it in my home state of Florida. The rates for paramedics are going up, but I'll give you a little bit of an example. Currently, this year can clear six figures. Six figures is not a lot anymore. And in the
No.
state of Florida, right now, one single person in an urban area, let's just say the Tampa Bay area, which is
Mm,
about 3 or 4 counties, one single person needs an average of about 95,000 a year just for like a basic middle class existence. We're not talking anything fancy or luxury, right? So one person, 95,000. So now your average pay right now for a fire certified paramedic in that same area is still starting between 65 and 70,000 a year. So
mm-hmm.
you've got a public servant who is being heavily underpaid, probably needs to get a second job, which
Mm-hmm.
then creates a cycle of burnout
Yep.
because that doesn't match what they need in order to just have a basic life there.
And then if they have a family
Then
on top
it's
of it
just
with
you're adding and
kids,
adding and adding, which means your negative just gets bigger and bigger.
and then that's where burnout and I think
And
taking care
everything
of
else kind of
yourself
escalates from there.
mentally, all
Yes.
that. That's
Yes.
why you need to think
One
raise
thing I will
awareness with
say,
your
yes.
books and what you're doing.
Yes.
You need to talk about it more, Esther. I love
Absolutely.
what
Let's
you're
talk about it more.
doing.
Let's have these
It's
conversations.
cool.
And let's
Yeah.
have the conversations in front of our county council people. Let's have the conversations in front of our state legislature. Speaking
Yeah.
of that, the state of Florida, I will give them props. They are addressing part of that issue. They've just recently passed legislation where our fire department, because remember, most of it's fire rescue in Florida, they're all going to be shifting to 24/72 schedules. It has been studied. It's what we call evidence based. That helps cut way back on burnout because you have enough time to recover. The good thing is, I've noticed that the counties that are already moving into the 24/72 schedule are not dropping the pay for the medic at that rate. So you're getting the extra time off, not suffering on that pay side. So that I'm hoping is going to go a long way to attacking both problems at the same time. And I
Okay.
guess, we'll wait and see in the next, they've got 2 more years left to fully phase all the fire departments in Florida to that. So I'm
Yeah.
honestly a little bit excited to see how that goes. And
Hmm.
I would probably consider going back to doing some kind of fire rescue in my home community
Yeah.
if it gets to be, financially and mental health time wise feasible. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you definitely, with your experience and everything like that, and here you just walk in a firehouse, I think they would want you on,
Well, no, it's never
you
that.
know.
It's more like, can I still, the way you think in the back of the head, like, am I going to be able to take
I,
this much pay for this,
the, just
compared
saying
to
if you
travel?
wanted to, but the
Yeah,
travel part of it for sure, you
yeah,
getting paid good to do that,
right.
and you get to travel. It's like little vacations,
Well, and you know what?
right?
That's another really cool thing about travel. I think the more I've traveled, the more I realize, everybody wants to be really political and really religious. And obviously, this is not
Mm.
meant to offend anyone at large, but traveling and being in different communities and being in different areas of this country, we all have so much more in common than what we have that's not. And at the end of the
100%.
day, like I've told a lot of people that I've trained, we all bleed the same color and it's red.
Yep.
And so when you start looking at things from that perspective and from that lens, and you're like, the natives here on the reservation have the same fears, the same wants, the same challenges as the families in the inner city. They do. It might be dressed up in different, you know, outer things. It could be dressed up in like a different scenario, but it's still the same core needs, and we all have them. So
Yeah.
then when you start thinking like that, it's a lot harder to hate somebody just because of the color of their skin or what they believe, when at the end of the day, we're all looking for the same and wanting the same and needing the same things. And to me, that's just humanity. So that's one of the things that I think has really been reinforced just traveling in the different areas that I've been able to travel to.
Yeah. Sweet. It's really cool. I don't even know what to have to. I don't even know what to say a lot of the times talking with you. It's like I'm like, wow. It's cool because you're a paramedic. I'm a paramedic, and it's like,
Mhm.
I mean, I get it, but you're on just such as different, like the the experiences that you have compared to the experiences I have. It's just different. I think, just like the call you went on earlier.
Yeah.
You know. Um, but I think also with you being on the Indian reservation, I think that's sweet too. When I was in Montana, there was the Crow reservation, and Michigan. We have a lot up in up north too. A lot of the names, and everything. Saginaw, Keweenaw, Mackinac. I love it. All the cool names,
Well, and I
and
think one thing I've learned is also having a little bit of a sensitivity and kind of being open-minded to their thoughts when it comes to not just themselves like person or whatever, but their spiritual beliefs and there's other things that they do
mm,
that's cultural to them. And when you come into that situation, I've come into it with a lot of respect and just a lot of openness. And for me, in these 6, almost 7 months, one of the biggest things that I loved about the time here was I got invited to a Sundance. And that's rather a big
wow,
deal already
the
because that's kind
culture
of a sign of
alone.
acceptance. And I was allowed, and I took it as a great honor to dance in one of the dances. And it was
What was
cool.
the
It was
dancing
so
like?
cool.
What
It was
what does this
it's
consist
very
of?
hard to describe. So for me, again, I'm from Florida, but I was born in Miami and my nationality is Caribbean. So we actually have, and this kind of brings full circle around to like all the things that we have in common. A lot of our spiritual practices are similar. Our dances were similar. It was very relatable.
Mm,
And just recognizing that. And the day I happened to do that, And that's why I said everything just aligned. And we were in the middle of the woods, and it was just very like nature and very grounding and very relaxing. And I had a shift that evening. So, when I was done, I thanked them obviously because it's a really big honor. Like I appreciated it. And,
I
said
bet.
goodbye to the elders of the tribe and everything. And so then I went into shift. And I had a very, very difficult shift, but I will say that having had kind of like that breather and just that connection and that beauty of the spiritual meaning and the nature and everything before the shift just really helped me to get through that shift. And that's what I talk about. Like, take the moments that come and like it just all these things come together.
Hmm.
And that was not just self care, it wasn't just mental health, but it was like, hey, I've connected to the community that I'm serving. And like, this is them kind of
So
welcoming me into.
this dance, like called it a sun dance.
Yes, so
Yeah.
this is kind of like the spring into summer Sundance, and it's
Okay.
very much the meaning that they were explaining to me behind the section that I participated in. It's kind of like a gratitude for getting through the winter, gratefulness for like all the new beginnings with spring and that kind of thing. Obviously, there's some closed practice stuff that I won't get into, but overall, that's kind of the intention and the meaning
It's passing the
of.
peace pipe around a little bit, having some fun, some good times.
No, it's just the meaning of everything. Everything that is done does have a meaning. And I think it's beautiful to kind of see that
Absolutely.
progression.
I think that's the coolest part of where you're at
Yes.
is the Indian reservation. I think that is awesome.
Yes.
Especially for you for them accepting you to,
Yeah.
and be a part of that dance. Like that's quite the experience. Was it
Yes.
like a dancer on a fire?
Well, yes and no. Fire is present, but that's not a big component of this particular dance. So, like, obviously, we all have like this conception of what is on TV, obviously, the reality, and every tribe has their own special things. So, I only know, what I experience, but the reality is very different. And I mean, in that situation and in that space and in that moment, it just was very organic. It flowed, it was very seamless, it made sense. I don't know if I
Mm.
really have any other way to describe it other than that. They do also later on this summer, I've been told there's going to be a powwow that's open to the public. I
Hmm.
don't know that I will still be on this contract when it's there, but they definitely were like, make sure you try to come. So we'll see what happens. That's still kind of open ended.
Hmm.
But yeah, so again, just things that are similarities that connect us, especially when you look at things from the eyes of culture and when you look at things from the eyes of, at the end of the day, we all came from the earth and we go right back into the earth, kind of like the circle of life. So yeah.
Hmm. And how much longer are you out there?
So for right now, my current contract is set through the end of probably end of July into August. Again, that's always kind of variable. One of the cool things about travel medicine, depending on the company that you choose to be contracted with and stuff, you have quite a bit of control over your schedule. I think that's a benefit to being a
Hmm.
traveler. You could generally have, usually the shortest contracts are like 13 weeks. And then there's places that'll contract you a year. Like it very much is dependent on your alignment with their schedule, their
Yeah,
needs.
if
It
your
all kind of
availability
exactly like West
too.
Texas. When I was posted in Texas, it was a very different rotation because it was remote, austere, and it worked with the oil rigs.
Hmm.
So I was on for 2 weeks, but then I could go home for 2 weeks. So
Okay.
that was what we call a 14-14 rotation. I have a good friend. They serve on an offshore rig in the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America now. So they go out for 28 days and then they get to come home for 28
Yeah,
days.
the rigs. I forgot the oil
Yes,
rigs. That's
yes,
another thing.
yes, yes, very
So
much.
okay. And you could always like with the option, it's like if your contract's up in
Yes,
end of
absolutely. They
July or
usually
August, you could
reach
be like,
out. They
gotta
usually
go,
reach out and they're
or
like,
they
hey,
can
you're
you
coming
stay?
up on this. Either you extend or, and depending on,
Mm-hmm.
how things are,
Yeah, we'll throw
well,
you a
this
couple
contract I've
extra
actually
fifty
extended
thousand
twice.
dollars if you stay.
I've extended this one twice. And
Okay, you
like
like
I
it
said,
that
we'll see.
much, having some
We'll
good
see.
times. Hey, I want to go back home though, take a 2 week vacation. I'm
Right. And,
sure
and you can. I have a
accommodate
partner
that.
currently on this contract with me. He'll be getting married. So he structured his contract to where he's going to get the 2 weeks off so he can go get,
Yeah,
do whatever and then come back. Like that's
cool.
kind of the cool thing about the flexibility. Again, the downside, especially depending on what your family structure looks like and how independent you are versus not, you are away from your loved ones for a hot little minute. So it
You
can be
remind
kind of,
me of a medic butterfly.
yes, I would,
You're a medic
butterfly.
butterfly,
Yes, medic butterfly. I like that. That's a good description, honestly.
and you also written some books.
Yes, yes. Well, and that's
In
why,
these books,
well,
you
so
but
I will give you the
are
links.
you? I want the links. Are you on social media or anything?
So my
I know
social
on Facebook
media,
because
it's
that's
a
where I
little
met
bit,
you.
yes. So we connected through Facebook. It's a little bit of a, I'm learning my way on social media. And one of the reasons is I did 4 years in corrections as a medic. That is also pretty unusual.
Hmm.
Um, there's, I've
But
always
so you
felt,
worked with some. You kind of want to be a little cautious, maybe right now.
yes, you have to be a little cautious when you do correctional work as far as, your
Yeah.
personal life, just for safety reasons. At the same time,
Yeah.
it's still aligned with who I am as a clinician and as a provider because I feel that no matter what, like you could be the worst person in the world. That doesn't take away your right to receive care. That doesn't take away your right to,
Correct.
be human and have your needs met. Like,
Correct.
and one of the things that got me through corrections for the amount of time that I've done it is, I look at this and this is a person that needs these particular medical things and they're hurting in this particular way right now. And this is what I'm here
Yeah.
to fix. I'm definitely not here to necessarily, and I'm not saying be rude or anything like that. Never have. It is a different way of interaction because they need to know that yes, I care about their issue and I care about their problem, but I'm not going to open the door to where they feel comfortable to have any kind of friendly relationship because you have to have boundaries. And I
Yeah.
don't
You do.
care to
You
find
do.
out what their charges or anything is.
Hmm.
That's not my business. You are a human and I still need to treat you. And so keeping that in mind has made it very successful. I've learned a lot of cool things in corrections that maybe you won't get anywhere else. It's very unique.
Yeah.
So, but it was cool. It's been a good experience. And again, that's kind of why maybe you want to call it like, medic butterfly, but it's a really good way of having all these different things and these different knowledges in my head. And you never know when something's going to come in handy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And with the well, we're with social media, your call whether to be on it, but where I was going at with that is that your books and how I think they could help people that are interested in
Yes.
travel jobs,
Yes.
right? Or as a travel medic, they can contact you or talk with you. And I didn't know if you were going to post things on that. I think you
I
could, and that'd
am
be
a
kind
little
of
bit.
cool and
I'm more
see.
active on
Yeah,
LinkedIn for that
LinkedIn, okay. And then
as
same with
far
I
as that.
think the
Yes.
wellness part, helping
Yes.
paramedics in that area. But
Yes.
do you have any other plans with any other books or anything like that?
So I kind of have, I would call it a passion project
Okay.
for those of us that are old enough to remember like Scrubs and ER
Yeah.
as like daytime
What was
type
the
soap
second one?
opera. ER.
ER.
Way
Yep.
back when,
I
George
liked
Clooney,
House.
oh yeah, I love House.
House
But
was
way back
sweet.
when like Clooney was like hot and like everybody's little heartthrob. Well, okay, so I started a little passion project. I've outlined 6 books. They're supposed to be like comedy, but a little bit
Wow.
of romance and very much
Okay.
set in like EMS setting. So it's
Mm.
one of those, I'm kind of halfway through the first one. We'll see how it goes. I
Okay.
haven't even given myself timelines, to be honest, because again, it's a passion project and it's going to be for fun. It's not going to be for, anything other than fun and for the joy of
Okay.
doing it.
Just fun,
And then,
having fun,
yeah,
having
just fun.
fun.
And
Sometimes
then
you
my
need to
other
loosen up and have
thing,
some
like we
fun.
were
Like
talking about the
I've
wellness.
been, yeah,
Yeah,
I got to loosen up on this. I was a little
right, right.
intimidated by you. All the, in 6 years,
You're
I feel like
good. No,
I've
listen,
been a
I'm just
medic for
me.
like 14 years, and I'm like, man,
No,
you have so
no,
much
everybody
experience.
has a different path.
You're working with just
Everybody's
an
path may
EMT on
be
these
different.
calls. I mean, when I did 911s, there was a time where I was just me and an EMT, and that was tough. And even then, I had to call right away and have fire show up or other paramedics.
Oh, no, no,
You're
no. You
doing it.
need to learn to
It's you.
function completely
You're
like it
out
is
there
you
doing
and
it
you
all. I'm
alone.
sitting
Yeah,
here
it's you and
thinking to
you alone.
myself, I'm like,
Yeah,
wow,
it's you and
you
you.
know. But you're super
Yeah,
cool, and that's awesome with everything that you're doing and
yeah.
helping the community out there and where you're at.
Well, and that's why I say, like, you don't ever know what the ripple effect. And speaking of butterflies, there was a movie called Butterfly Effect.
Oh yeah,
And I guess the big takeaway is, and this is just for anybody in healthcare, but I think it's so important in pre-hospital medicine. You don't ever know what the butterfly effect of your intervention is going to be.
Mm.
And it works both ways. And that's why sometimes, like within me, it bothers me when I run into medics that might be burnt out and they're still doing it because they either have no choice or whatever it is. And it kind of hurts me a little because the butterfly effect works both ways. Like it could be the most positive interaction. You can have this huge positive ripple effect, but also it could be negative. And what if, it's a negative? And that's why I try to be very open about the mental health and the wellness. And, I'll even take my own self out. Like pretty soon coming up, I'm giving myself 10 days. I will be doing
You
nothing
need
but
to.
going
You
back
need to
home.
relax.
Right, going back home,
Focus
relaxing,
on sleep.
unplugging, and do nothing but, family and fun and just a complete disconnect from, because that's what I need.
I,
And it
mm-hmm,
sounds selfish,
I,
but at the end of the day, it'll
no.
make me better when I get back.
Yes. I follow you 100%.
Yes.
And like for me, it's like we do 24-hour shifts and it's
Mhm,
a lack of sleep. Like sometimes I need to it's
mhm.
hard to unwind sometimes. Like when we
Oh,
have our
yeah.
days off, we get our
Mhm,
4 day. And then sometimes if we get do other trade days or take days off, we get a 6 day
mhm.
break. It's like I have a hard time just kind of unwinding into those days and to relax. And even then, like I'll lay in bed sleeping and I wake up and I'm like, it's I think I hear a call or
And
something.
right, and you know what? That's
And
very fair. And one thing I've said, especially, we didn't touch on it too much now, but I'll touch on it a little bit. I've had a therapist for the last 10 years pretty consistently.
mhm,
Therapy is something that we're still kind of, as a whole, getting used to, but I think it's super important. A couple of things that play a role in that. You want a therapist that what a what I would call trauma informed, because at the end of the day, if you're in this field, you're gonna be the front row seat to most people's worst day ever, and the stuff you'll see nobody else. The average person might see it once in their lifetime,
yeah.
and you're seeing it in and out. And so that does build trauma. No matter how well adjusted you are, it does build trauma. So
Mhm.
I would say a trauma informed therapist, something I started recently in the last year was EMDR therapy. I don't really dive into it in my book because I think that's more specialized.
What
But
is it? EMDR.
EMDR is basically, let me see if I can, it has an actual, I'll get the acronym in a minute, but basically, when you do regular therapy, you think of, sitting on somebody's couch or whatever the case is and kind of
Right.
going through the things and like what your thoughts were, et cetera, on it. So EMDR kind of takes it and puts it on steroids. The premise behind it is that it uses stimulation. So you know how you were saying that you'd wake up and it sounds like you're hearing like the tones drop or whatever.
Right.
So that is a sensory thing. That's something that's happening in your brain, in your eyes, and that gets linked to how your brain stores and processes memory. So EMDR is basically eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. And so what that does is you're using simulation, and the way my therapist has it set up is I'm listening to the particular sound. And
Hmm.
as I'm listening to this particular sound, I'm doing either guided eye movements or hand movements where it helps my brain process and kind of reframe the traumatic memory that we're discussing in that moment. It can be very difficult to do this kind of therapy. Some sessions I am wiped and I'm just physically like drained. But the benefit is when you've kind of processed and done all these things and you've given yourself time, again, a really good therapist that specializes in this will be able to guide you through. You process the trauma you deal with much quicker
Hmm.
and much better. And it has much less effect on your day to day life because you don't know until you're having scenes like, getting up in the middle of the night. For me, I'll share what it was for me. I was sleepwalking to the point that I would walk outside of my home and not know.
Wow.
And that was kind of the trigger for me. I got a service dog at that point. That helped. And then I went into EMDR. And when I went into EMDR, yes, it got harder before it got easier. But I am at a place now that I say, if you can get through that and you're willing to put in that work to get through the hard part, because it's hard to process trauma. And it could be trauma from your childhood, it could be trauma from everything that we all go through,
Yeah.
just living life, plus what we do in this particular field. Once you work through that process, it feels so much better on the other side. And I'm not saying it in the sense that like all things are perfect. Like it was such a tough week last week. I took extra time and I've got a session that I know is coming up. And it's kind of like sort of looking forward to it because I know at the end I'm going to feel better. But at the same time, I know it's going to be a little bit hard to talk about some of the stuff that happened last week, but I
Right.
know that it's that process that's going to help me. And that's part of continuously working on your mind and everything else. And again, the point is, it's going to make me better and I'll be able to show up better, not just in the field, but I'll be able to show up better, to my partner. I'll be able to show up better to my children and to my family and to my relationships. Because you also don't want to drag this home. It can be really difficult. And it's hard to have healthy relationships when you do this kind of work, whether it's us
It is.
specifically
Right.
or law enforcement or any kind of,
First responders
public
in general.
service, first responder. Yeah.
Yeah. But we all need to work together and stick
Yes,
together.
absolutely. And that's kind of why I felt that I wanted to be really general with the second book that I wrote. And I did put, and I'll be sharing with you my website, which is mindfulmedic.org.
Okay.
Mostly because on there is a little function. And if you want to, talk through stuff or maybe just be like, hey, I just need you to listen to me for half an hour, cool. Book a time slot there with me and just hear you out or talk or anything that could be of service kind of thing. Obviously, I'm not a professional therapist,
It's
but
okay.
with
But
my
we
skills and, just the stuff we learn from each other's life experience. And sometimes that's all you need.
so if we go to mindfulmedic.org,
.org. Yes.
you offer some services where we can talk with you.
Yes, there's ways to book there with me, and then there's links there to my books as well. So a little bit of everything, and that's what we'll be working and expanding on down the road.
Yeah,
And like I said, even if it helps one little person, that's that butterfly, the ripple effect.
you're right.